You're listening to Podcast PXN,
a video game podcast,
delivering a player experience news.
Let's go! What is up, guys, and welcome to Podcast PXN, episode 332. I am one of your hosts, Daniel Prindle, aka Dan is DTM on still Twitter, and I'm joined over Discord by the Nintendo aficionado and hardcore casual himself, Roshan Warner at Roro.
Hello.
Hello, Ro. Hello. And our resident Embark Glazer and my fellow Spartan, Gage Dempster at Gilbo Biggins.
reporting for duty, ready to glaze, sir.
Glaze on. And we are joined graciously by the illustrious host of Large Popcorn and video producer at The Gamer, Christian Macias at ISO Christian.
assert. This is your favorite video game podcast. Assert. You will enjoy today's episode.
Incredible. Assert. Right. Thank you to everyone watching us live and participating in the chat. Just as a reminder, we are live each and every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time on youtube.com/@podcastpxn and twitch.tv/podcastpxn as well. All right, guys, the topic of the show this week, if you couldn't tell already by Christian's little tease there, is Marathon versus Arc Raiders. This is the final result. We're matching them up against each other. Full releases. We're about to get into it.
I bet you we do this one more time at some point this year. I bet you.
Okay. This is the final result for now. I'll put in quotes or parentheses.
That's awesome.
All right, guys. So jumping right into it, Marathon, Arc Raiders, both out. Marathon's been out for a little over, I guess, a month and a half now, right? It's been slowly churning away as we moved closer to the Cryo release, which we had the Cryo release, which the three of us did play this past week, so we have thoughts on that. But also, both games, I wanted to highlight this first. Both games have had a lot of changes that have been happening throughout the game's lifespans. But even recently, even as recent as last week, we had updates for both Marathon and Arc Raiders, giving us some more info and more updates and all of that good stuff. So, diving into a little bit of that, Marathon last week had an update that featured changes to knife PvP damage. They lowered the damage of the knife. Bubble shields. Allegedly, Gage says.
Well, they did.
Allegedly.
Bubble shields got a rarity bump up. They went from deluxe blue to superior purple, and also reduced the bubble HP by 33%. So some little tweaks there to the items. I think we had maybe a couple of other fixes and exploit fixes there as well, but for the most part, that was last week's bit of an update for Marathon. And then this week we got a bit more from Marathon with another new update, which they have patch notes for. Oni has launched the Carry or CyberAcme Runner Reinforcement Initiative, which is a new protocol that rewards both solo runners and coordinated crews for completing contract objectives and exfilling together. CyberAcme commendations are a new material earned by helping crewmates complete contract objectives, completing contract objectives as a solo runner, or successfully exfilling as a rook. Extra commendations can be earned when you exfil with other players outside of your crew. They added Stay Together, which is a new end-of-run experimental feature that allows you to stay with the runners that you just exfilled with by creating a new crew with them. It also added where only one crewmate needs to successfully exfil for stay together to be available. They added the capability to access the rewards pass in the top left corner next to Silk. That a little bit easier. They added new skins to the rewards pass as well, which they had talked about in the past. They updated a bunch of beginner player interaction type things. They updated the perimeter beginner map to be a solos only map that remains playable to players until seasonal level 12 to try to introduce new players a little bit to a little bit easier experience. The perimeter beginner map also presents a reduced risk of encountering other runners. They added 5 new contracts for the perimeter beginner map as well. New and existing players under seasonal level 12 will also have access to the new Cyber Acme contracts tailored for the beginner experience to help with their first steps in Marathon. These contracts are no longer accessible after reaching seasonal level 12 and will be removed even if decrypted or active. They also made a tweak to the final exfil. When the final exfil is active, there are less than 10 seconds remaining. The timer for other exfils will be reduced to match the remaining session timer. The tie goes to the runner, after all. And a few other things, but those were kind of the big highlights of this update. And then they also talked about their experimental queue that they added, Free Kit Frenzy, Dire Marsh, which is basically all sponsored kits in Dire Marsh. The experimental queue is a limited time queue that allows us to preview features in development. This queue allows the Marathon development team to learn and obtain feedback that helps us deliver a more completed feature set down the line. Their next experiment is starting Wednesday, which is today at 10 a.m. Pacific. They are doing the sponsored queue, which is a new experimental queue that is focused on learning a bit more about our early gear ecosystem. In this queue, all players will enter with a free sponsored kit and be challenged to use what they find on Dire Marsh to upgrade themselves and get out. So, that is all of our Marathon updates that have come our way the last 2 weeks.
I have not tried out the Free Kit Frenzy. I think Christian has, though, right?
That came out today, didn't it?
Oh, okay.
I've been working today.
Okay. Yeah, that
hold on.
seems. Go ahead.
Wait. Can we? Maybe I'm misunderstanding this Arc versus Marathon topic. Can we give the Arc Raiders updates from last week? Because my understanding was let's talk about the state of the games and how we're feeling about them in the current standing.
Yep, we can do that. I have that next here. Arc Raiders, as you mentioned, Christian, got a new update last week as well. Patch 1.23 rolled out, which fixed some issues, including Rocketeers using the wrong combat alert sound. They fixed an issue where 2 trigger nades would sometimes deal 3 times the damage, which was kind of insane. They also fixed a issue. I was talking to Gage about this. I don't know if it was this update or the one before that, but they had a bug where when you switch to certain items, it wouldn't use the item right away on controller, and I was getting fucking pissed. Like, it was not working, and they did fix that, so I was happy about that.
That was this one.
Okay, yeah. Let's see. They changed the movement speed for Rocketeers and Vaporizers so they don't behave strangely while idling. So it was the update before this that they added Vaporizers and the new event, right? It wasn't this one. This
that was Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So it seems like a lot of these are just like fixes. All arcs summoned by the assessor will correctly leave the area and despawn. Did they add any like? They didn't add any like gameplay stuff last week, right?
The trigger nades, the swappable items, the quick use items. They fixed that issue where when you reloaded a gun, it would shoot automatically after the reload animation, which is a problem for the Pharaoh. They fixed shoulder swap issues on consoles. They fixed or identified some crashes that were happening with consoles, specifically the PS5 Pro. And then they fixed an exploit where an anvil splitter could be used without the penalty for dispersion, which people were speculating that this is the end of the Rocketeer flipper by having the what's that gold mod that goes onto it?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? That extended barrel. Sorry, the extended barrel and the anvil splitter combined. Oh, and then barricades can no longer be placed on zip lines as of the 1.23 update.
I forgot about the shoulder swap issue. You're right on that. Yeah, because I experienced both the shoulder swap issue and the item thing when I was playing with Gage one night, and I was telling him, and he's like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, this is fucking annoying. Like my camera was stuck to one side, and I'm like, this is fucking obnoxious." All right. So Arc Raiders a bit more just patches and updates. Of course, they had their big update a few weeks ago. So that's the current status of Marathon and Arc Raiders. Do we want to talk about the stuff upcoming here before we, or do we? How do we want to do that?
Let's take a break from news. Is my vote, and talk about how our sentiments so far, and then we can kind of look ahead and segue that.
Perfect.
As we sort of tail end those conversations.
Sounds good.
That's my vote.
Okay. So then let's do it this way then. Let's talk about. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I have a pitch because I've been thinking about this all week since you asked. Like, are you going to be joining us next week?
Go for it.
I think we start with Arc Raiders. It's the game that's been out the longest. It's the game that we've put the most amount of time in. And we also have the resident Embark Glazer, right, who has recently reviewed the game on Steam, and I'm sure he's had tons of thoughts here cooking. It's also like a game that has like a lot of discourse around the state of like how the game is shaping out right now, for in terms of like a live service product and like longevity and how to get players back, quote unquote. So I'd love to hear what you guys think about Arc Raiders currently right now and overall sentiments. Starting with Gage.
I can try. That's not really how I had my ideas formulated. I had it in sort of like comparison, sort of.
Oh.
Sail away! Sail away! Drive us. I'm a passenger.
So, and I was also going to suggest, like, if we were just talking about like the current state, we could talk about what we like about the current state, and what we don't like about the current state, and then we could talk about the upcoming stuff in the news, and then like what we want to see after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's cooking.
Okay.
In that case, I want you to start, Dan, and then I'll see what you're kind of laying down, and then I'll
okay. I will to start, like, general thoughts. I think both of these games are very good in my opinion. Like I think that it's so funny to go look back on the technical tests of both Arc Raiders and Marathon that were happening like early last year, or actually like roughly a year ago, which is crazy to think about.
Right.
And how different states they were in back then. And like back then, like obviously I was super excited for Marathon back then, and I was a little bit concerned after playing that technical test, like, man, this game's supposed to launch in September. I really hope that they push this, because there's a lot of stuff here that is not looking great, like visually, and also there's a lot of issues that I had with the game in terms of playability, like, you know, obviously the in-game voice chat, which I don't think is a massive deal in Marathon. I think it kind of gets underused in Marathon when comparing it to Arc Raiders in terms of voice chat. But I think that's still an important factor, as well as having more ways to experience Marathon, because they didn't have a solos playlist, they didn't have rooks, they didn't have that solo experience built into the game back then. And like while Marathon is like much better and much more fun to play, in my opinion, as a trio, I think it is still important to have like a really solid way to play solo as well, because you can't always guarantee that you're going to have a squad put together. And as we've all found out, the squad fill isn't always the best experience because you don't know who you're going to get into a lobby with. So yeah, I think that both of these games do things really well. I think Marathon's PvP is very, very fun, and I think they have the guns well tuned. I think they have the TTK well tuned. I know we've had like a little bit of back and forth on that in the past, but and also Arc Raiders to the same sentiment. I think that Arc Raiders is tuned very well for what that's doing. Like Arc Raiders has a longer TTK, but it's like it works very well for that sandbox and all the items that are in that game, and having the arc that kind of are more daunting because there's so many different types of arc. I think that's one of the unique factors for Arc Raiders as well, is you have more variety when it comes to the AI specifically, because you have flying arc, you have little arc, you have big arc, you have ground arc, you have shredders, which are kind of its own category. You have the massive arc, which are the base killers. I don't know. So it's like there is more variety there in terms of fighting those different AI enemies in that game, when comparing to Marathon, which has a much more, I would call it, simplistic viewpoint on how they're building their AI, but kind of leaning into the PvP side of things. But yeah, I think both have succeeded in my book in terms of being just fun experiences to play.
You said something really interesting there, which is that and I think that's kind of a great point, which is that Arc Raiders they're both extraction shooters, but Arc Raiders feels a lot more like a sandbox, and I would say Marathon is much more competitive. There's a lot of through lines from like obviously previous Bungie games, and the gunplay feels really. A lot of these games, their strong suits are like in the same category. It's just in my mind, one of them will slightly edge out the other. Like both of them, the gunplay in both of these games feels really good. The only reason why I would say that the gunplay in Arc is more impactful to me is that third-person shooters, for whatever reason, are really tough to get like the weight and the feeling of guns right. And to me, it's like when I think of like third-person shooters that always feel good, it's like Rockstar and Naughty Dog. And then now you have a game that's like made by a studio like a fraction the size of those two, and that the gunplay just feels so good and so close to those other games. It kind of ascends to like a different category. Like I don't know, like the fact, like I every now and again I think to myself, it's crazy that like you have a game that is as accessible and as like we'll say friendly to newcomers as Arc Raiders, but that game doesn't have any hit markers because it doesn't need them, because the sound design and the weapon feedback is so good that like people don't. I bet you there's a lot of people playing it right now that don't even realize that there's no hit markers in this game. That everything, all the information to you is just conveyed in its relative category as it needs to, like the sounds of shields cracking, or the sound of flesh hits, or even punching through armor on Arc. Yeah, I mean, both of these games do a lot right. They both do sound really well. I think both of them have really fresh art styles. The art style argument to me is really interesting because I feel like I kind of have to dissect it. I think I like the environment art style of Marathon slightly more than Arc. It's a lot more like new and fresh and kind of like really stands out amongst like its competitors. But then like I've talked to you guys about this before, like all the items and the weapons in Marathon are all like sci-fi nonsense to me and don't really have a lot of like interesting ideas, whereas like, the Anvil, the Pharaoh, the Stitcher, all these, the Bobcat, the Tempest, these guns kind of like all have this like really unique charm and character to them. So like even in something as simple as art style, it's not like completely cut and dry. There's certain things that Marathon does better. I think there's some things that Arc Raiders does better. The one thing I will say that like Marathon has nailed really early, and that I think Arc Raiders hopefully will remedy later, is the progression and sort of like core gameplay loop going far into like raids and matches and being able to chain raids together. This is something that Christian actually said when we were playing with him recently is that he said like the being able to chain raids together from one to the next is like something that feels rewarding in marathon, whereas Arc Raiders does kind of feel a lot like let's get the most inventory value and get out safely. Whereas marathon, there's a bit more. I don't know. The quests just feel like they're a bit deeper. They're a bit more well thought out, and completing those contracts and getting that ability to go to a specific skill tree for that faction that you just completed the contract for to then level up. You can kind of set your mind on a goal for like a session in marathon that I think really helps with that game right now in terms of people finding stuff to do. Where Arc Raiders, especially if you put like hundreds of hours into it, like I have, you definitely kind of like you have to make your own fun to which again leads great to your point of calling it a sandbox. It's funny that I've never put two and two together, but that's a great word for Arc Raiders. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's things that they both do well. I think the one kind of like dynamite thing that kind of blows this whole conversation out of the water that a lot of people don't think about is like compare team sizes of these games. Like I feel like Arc Raiders is kind of more of an achievement based on from what I've researched, 75 to 100 max people made this game, and you compare that to something like Marathon, which had what quadruple the amount of numbers if we want to look at like recent rumors and reports that are coming out. So like there's the argument between these games before that gets brought into conversation, and then there's the argument after that gets brought into conversation in my mind. So like in my mind, that always makes Arc Raiders kind of like a unique achievement in video game, especially with the numbers that it launched at. Even though the numbers conversation is boring and doesn't really add a whole lot to talking about the merit of a game, but it is something that is is real and did happen, and so that's kind of, I don't know if it's a bias or if it's something that should be discounted, but I can't not think about that whenever this topic gets brought up.
One thing, adding on to the sandbox thing with Arc Raiders, I think what makes that game so like interesting is like the in-game experiences you get from just interacting with the people on the map. Like you can get like any experience basically. It's like its own role-playing game. Like you can have some dude who's role-playing in some crazy role and acting like a mad person and just going crazy, or you could have someone coming into the lobby singing and at the top of, I don't know who would do that.
Right. And you could be those people too. That's the crazy thing, right? All these things, you could totally be that person. And it's funny because people will bring this up as a negative against Arc, as like, oh, this should be a PvP game. People shouldn't be doing this. But like I think about it, like in like other games, isn't that kind of what you want out of a sandbox online mode? Like it would be much more interesting if you got into GTA lobbies and people had this variety of like experiences you could have. But like you get into a GTA lobby and it's just it's what Marathon is. You're getting dominated and killed by people on site. So yeah, the Arc Raiders, I mean,
there's roleplay lobbies, there's like servers.
Oh yes, for sure. But you don't have to find that out. You don't have to search those out in Arc Raiders. You just kind of load into it and that's there. And if that bothers you and you don't like that, then I can see how that could get annoying for sure. I still think that like ABM would sort that out. That's the one thing I never understood with that discourse around Arc Raiders is that like I don't like that there's PvE people. It's like, well, if you don't play PvE, then how are you running into these PvE people that bother you so much? But yeah, no, you're totally right, Dan. Like and that for me, like that's something that I've wanted out of like other sandbox games for a long time. So the fact that Arc Raiders has that, I think maybe is one of the reasons why I like it so much is that you're able to go in and either, shit talk people and get into a standoff and have all these exchanges, or like you find somebody cool that's helping you finish a quest or something like that. Like the range of variety keeps it fresh for me, for sure.
I would disagree on the whole social side of the game being sort of like what I call primary to the design of the game. I think that just happens like in spite. Maybe not in spite. I'm sure these things are connected in some way. I won't even go down that because I think it is kind of. I think you are right. I think it is largely why that game has succeeded as well as it had. Also, a much needed thing in the shooter space because like a lot of things or multiplayer games were happening in like private calls and lots of videos were going out like missing the old days of online gaming, right? When everyone can talk to each other. And I think it's good that people are having social interactions like this to this scale. I think it's awesome. The way I'm thinking about arc raiders and marathon right now, and the way I have in the last couple of weeks, very similar to where you guys are at about the game. But also, like, I end on a different note. I think that game's core experience is indeed like a masterclass of modern day. What do you want to call it? Like shooters? I guess multiplayer gaming. Phenomenal. An amazing experience throughout, the opening hours into my 100 to 200 hours into the game. And again, like Dan was saying, our pre-release time with the game as well. I think where it has struggled has been as a post-release live service product. And I was like, okay, well, why do I think that? Because it's like the discourse that's happening right now. What is the reason why there's a sentiment around that? And I think for me, what it is when I think about the like core experience of the game when it released, it was so fresh. Dan mentioned the like dynamic engagements with the enemy arc, which I think is smart to point to that, because the AI in that game is incredible. I think the design around that is phenomenal. You don't see much of that, and I think you get something as fresh as that because it spent so long incubating as a PvE game first before they pivoted into the extraction model that obviously it is now. Where I think it like struggles is the updates themselves have been largely centered around the arc. In the beginning, in the core experience of the extraction of arc raiders, for me, these interactions with the arc, for me, were like obstacles. They were like in the way of the core experience of like PvP and going into these POIs. They were like things that were in the environment that like obviously were a danger. Keeps like map variety fresh by having different kinds of arc during different events, right? You get an introduction like Stella Montis, where you're like, it's like a tighter indoor map where you have to engage with enemies different than like open spaces, and you have a new arc. And so like all these things, the arc are the obstacle. Most of their post-launch updates have been, here is a new enemy. And I don't know if that is enough to like sustain long-term engagement when we're looking for quote unquote end game things to do, because that is not a thing to do. That is an obstacle in an already like existing world for like the same maps that we've already been playing on for X amounts of months. We're gonna get into upcoming stuff for arc raiders, where I think it can reclaim a bunch of that huge sentiment with where it's going next. But what I'll pivot to, and I'll compare that to Marathon, and this is hard to like super compare, because Marathon is still like that game is what 6-7 weeks old. Oh damn it, I did the thing. So like I'm aware that I do have recency bias because I am still in the middle of figuring out the pace of this game. Even though I'm like close to 100 hours, I'm still in the learning curve of it. But I think where it gets the leg up is like it like very early on separated like, here's the end game content with Cryo Archive. It is only open X amount of days during the week, and you have to ante up with a certain amount of gear before you can even go to that. And once it's gone, you have to spend the remaining days of the week. I think it's like 4 days, right? 3 days open, 4 days off, or maybe it's the inverse. Looting in the other maps that you like are open all the rest of the time, and then go into the end game content. Excuse me. And so you have like a really good balance of like, now I have a clear path in my mind for like what I am doing in the game throughout the week, so that I am engaging in the map events, in the like various maps themselves, right? All these different avenues that it's like the normal game, and then you go into the end game. And I think that pace is really, really good. And I think something that I think arc raiders can really benefit from, because I think the end game for arc has been stuff like Trials, which is mixed stuff on. Quests are kind of whatever, and then there are these projects that are essentially like farm arc parts, and it's like, okay, well, I'm already doing that in the core game anyway. Like, do I want to be doing more of that? I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're dead right on when it comes to end game stuff, and it feels like Embark maybe is making the mistake that they're kind of, a lot of the things they add to this game, like you said, a lot of these projects is kind of farm these resources that you're already getting naturally for crafting. I worry that they're kind of taking the path of like, let's add things that don't really cause friction with our current systems, where I think friction is maybe a little bit what Arc could use of, especially in the late game. The fact that Cryo, this end game sort of loot run or raid, whatever you want to call it, is locked away, and that in order to prepare for it you have to go to other maps, is such a huge benefit in terms of keeping things fresh and keeping you going to other maps and staying within the sort of gameplay loop. Arc Raiders could definitely use some of that, and I think that obviously this I don't think this new map is going to be that, but it's not only just that too, it's also the factions. I think Arc Raiders really needs to keep with their pattern of like, we're gonna cater this game to what your play style is with the aggression based matchmaking. I think that having different factions giving you different quests for different play styles would help that a lot. Something that Marathon launched with is something that like Tarkov has done. Other games in the past has done. I was kind of surprised that Arc Raiders didn't, but again, I think they did that maybe consciously to make the game more seamless and approachable, which is kind of like it's a pattern that this game has and is both good and bad. But that would really benefit Arc Raiders, I think, because then you have specific quests that you're looking for based on your play style, and it's not just go to this map and look for this flag and touch this and bring it back.
Can I say, because that's the thing, right? Because I think you're dead on. Like they have all this non-friction that I think you're right does make the game super approachable. I don't want to use the word casual, but I think approachable is a better word for it, because you have like a really good structured onboarding. You understand what the game is. You understand the hook immediately. The inverse is Marathon, that has like I think a higher skill floor for like understanding the systems of that game. You're rewarded obviously by learning them, because I think the game is really good, but like not a lot of people are wanting to devote their beginning hours to a bunch of friction, and Arc Raiders kind of eliminates that. But then down the line, when you have things that are more approachable, it's harder to sustain sort of like long term, because I think for me friction is what makes a lot of games fun.
Right, and the friction almost goes opposite ways, where it's really, really high in the beginning for Marathon, and then as you play, the game gets easier. Whereas in Arc, it's very frictional, especially if let's say your first like 10 raids in Arc, you're just dying. Like, you're a new player, you're a dad that just bought this game, you only play like a few hours a week. If your first 10 raids go awful for you, then the next, the forever of your Arc experience, you're going to be in PvE lobbies now. And so now the friction is completely gone, and it only ramps up again once you start getting to wanting to take on queens and matriarchs and etc. And same thing if you're good at the game too. It's a bit easier in the opening hours, and then as you want to hunt down these larger arc or farm these specific parts, that's when the friction comes in. The problem is that the height of the friction stops much lower than in Marathon, I think, in Arc Raiders, and so they need something else to kind of, for those who want to chase that friction, to then other things that make it harder and harder and harder.
Ro, what would it take for you to play Marathon?
Gosh.
I mean,
It's a good question.
That's not that crazy, right? Because you played Destiny too.
That's true, I did, but I mean, I feel like I hear the gunplay is very good, very similar in that regard, but I don't know how I feel about extraction shooters in general. I hear that it's very,
fucking sweaty,
intense.
dude. It is competitive.
Yeah.
It can't not
So
be
I don't know if
stressful too, because everything's always on the line.
Right.
You know what?
It's I hear your adventures and stuff like that, and I have to be there day one, or I think I'm not gonna enjoy it as much, because I feel like the competitiveness only gets more competitive as time goes on, and I'm gonna be like a little bit behind. I don't want to be the guy weighing you guys down. I know you guys don't think that, but that's just how I feel with competitive games a lot of the time.
You know what, Ro? You would be the person being yelled at by Christian saying, "Go back to Arc Raiders."
That's
I
true.
love saying that once a night. Once a night, I always say that.
Go back to Arc Raiders.
Dan will say, "Hold on, let me talk to this guy we just killed before you kill him," and I'll say, "Yeah, tell him to go back to Arc Raiders."
Oh my goodness.
I like talking to my dead people on the ground, you know?
VR
Okay.
sounds crazy cool though.
Yes.
But Cryo Archive is insane. I might find a video that just like details how to fight the compiler and just send that to you if you're curious to see like because I don't did you do any Destiny raids? I forget. I've asked this before.
Yeah, definitely.
Imagine having to start a Destiny raid, except you're also in the Crucible, and if you die, you have to go back to the lobby and reload. And you're just trying to start.
Awful.
Yeah. And we're not even close to doing that. We're just figuring out how the whole map works.
And it takes
I
so
just watched
long
the
to
video. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and it takes so long to get to that point to even get to
Right.
fight him.
True.
Right. Damn.
I was gonna ask about Cryo next, so that kind of leads into it. Like, I guess, what is our thoughts on Cryo after we were playing it last week?
Can I go first?
Go for it.
Please.
Like I mentioned, I love friction in games. I think something that is really enticing about like the progression of marathon maps is that they introduce like a gimmick to the map that you have to like learn and master in order to like get good around the map. Cryo is on a whole nother level. To me, that's exciting. I understand the like frustration that it happens though because you're putting your gear on the line, and that can be very hard to like settle with. And admittedly, I think we had a really tough time last weekend. It was I think our first go into it, and I think we were like we had the odds against us. We were playing late. We didn't know what we were doing on the map. We had like vague ideas of like what kind of to do to sort of progress, and I ended up like Gage is like dead on the money after like 2 nights. He's like, I think I'm ready to like learn about the map before we like try it again. And so I did extensive research and texted you guys about it. Something that I learned recently, I really wanted to like understand map flow because I think that was where we were struggling with PvP. And I learned that like, you need security clearances to make it through the map. There are these 6 potential spawns out of 5 teams that you can get. Everyone's pushing towards the center. There was a suggestion that you should, if you're looking for more kind of looting runs, you should kind of stick by having your team sort of float around the edges of the map, pushing in one of 2 directions, minimizing PvP, which I think is good. But what I learned is that like there are 2 entrances to control. One of them is the base entrance that happens on the lower floor with a security clearance level 1. And it puts you at a disadvantageous position because you are on the bottom floor. Teams who have security clearance level 2 get the better entrance to control up top. A lot of the fights that were happening that for us happened when we did not have higher security clearances. And so teams were engaging at us at an advantage with their positioning. And I think Cryo has the potential to be like a really, really fun map for us, akin to like when we would have Stella Montis raid and Arc Raiders when we were juiced up with gear and we understood what we were doing on the map and what our purpose was, and we had good team chemistry. I feel like with Marathon's gunplay and PvP being as compelling as it is, I think Cryo has the like potential to be like one of the most fun experiences for me in a multiplayer game. It's going to take some time and investment, I think, for us to like really truly get there. But I'm ready to commit, if I'm being honest.
Right. Yeah, I feel like Marathon. There's this comparison that happens with extraction games, and Arc Raiders, due to its approachability, has been able to dodge a lot of these comparisons. But Tarkov, Gray Zone, and Marathon especially, I think, do feed into this comparison, which is that there is an element of like MMO almost to this game. And it kind of, like Rose said, where he's like, I missed the initial wave and now it's tough to get in. And you have all these sort of like in-raid mechanics that you have to learn, and you need to chain together raids. I mean, we were talking about the compiler. I mean, even to get to the compiler, like what you said is like doing a Destiny raid while you're in the Crucible. You need to complete 7 vaults. Before you do that, and each one of those is like you're in the Crucible trying to complete
a dungeon
tasks, and so you got to do that 7 times, even though every single time you can lose all your stuff and get reset, and now you have to redo that vault. To do that 7 times before you can then even tackle the main objective of that mission. It very much is MMO coded, and That's going to do wonders for the people that are really into it, because MMO games make a lot of money off the people that are dedicated and like that. It's also going to have the same disadvantages of it being an MMO, which is like getting people on board, especially if you're trying to tell them about Cryo Archive. There's a lot of people that are not going to be willing to sign up for that. And so that's one of the things that Marathon is more like other extraction shooters in that sense, because Tarkov had the exact same vibes. You try to explain to somebody all of the cool things about Tarkov and all the depth and layers and complexity, to most people it's going to sound like it's too much and it's not fun. And Marathon has some similar vibes to it, especially when it comes to Cryo Archive. But I'm with you. It sounds cool. There's a lot of like layers to it, and that's what I want out of my games. But it is going to hurt it, especially in terms of the numbers game, which is a conversation that's happening right now in the online space.
I did see that because I think they're always asking for feedback on how to improve, and they are taking some of that feedback. Something that I saw was like, how do you get more people to like invest it into the end games, or to stick to the game through to the end game, to at least experience that? And one suggestion I saw floating around that I think I agree with is to make the Cryo Archive sponsored kit not just a one and done. Either have it at least once per weekend or once per day when Cryo is available. And I think having that would just having more people experience the map, I think would be good. But I think the struggle is like getting people to that point for sure.
Yeah, I think I'm of the same mindset that Gage is thinking, in terms of like, I don't think that this game is made to be accessible for your average gamer. I just don't think that it's I don't think it'll ever be that. Arc Raider's much more accessible, much more friendly to newer players and players that don't know what's going on, and you can go into raids without PvP by continuously just doing PvE stuff, which then lends itself to learning the game that way. So I think I know that this may get some pushback from you guys, but I feel like Marathon could benefit from having a similar matchmaking queue based on, hang on, hear me out, based on your aggression level, because the problem is,
I'm hearing you out.
Hang on, hear me out.
I'm hearing you out.
Because the problem is, in order to get more players to play the game, like you guys were saying, you're not going to get people to invest the time to get all the gear necessary for Cryo, go into Cryo, learn everything that there is to be in Cryo while trying to survive. Like, I do think that there could be a benefit to having aggression-based matchmaking where players could, if they so choose, go into a Cryo run and say, let's just try to figure this map out and not have to worry about players shooting us in the back. Because like, that is a massive problem if you're trying to learn and you're not the best PvP player. I understand the argument of this game's not going to be not necessarily for everyone, but like, it's the same mindset that I have when it comes to Arc Raiders' utilization of aggression-based matchmaking, where if you don't want that experience, then just don't do that experience. Right. Like, if you want to still PvP, just still PvP. And like, to me, that would be a win-win, because you know, us three going in, we can still look for that aggression matchmaking experience where we're trying to fight players. But you have the ability for more players to experience this by being able to experience it with just having to worry about UESC. And like, even like the compiler, like, how many players aren't even going to see the compiler through? They're not going to see that experience because it's
like all over the marketing and all over the lore. Like, this is, if you're into this universe and you're somebody who picked up this game and you want to get more to the Marathon universe, and this is like the major antagonist that you're just never meeting in the game, and you're never getting any sort of like closure. I hear you.
I do not. I am hard disagreeing.
But now, Christian, before you do, I want to say this though. This is the thing that's where Marathon is in a uniquely difficult position. If I compare this to a game like Tarkov, which is ironically enough probably closest to of the major extraction shooters, probably closer to Marathon in terms of difficulty. I think Tarkov is probably still a lot more difficult. but it's close enough. And here's the thing with Tarkov, right? Is that you have a player base that did get to a lot of the player base in Tarkov did get to experience the end game content, even though there's just as much nonsense and like there's no heads up display in that game. There's nothing telling you where to go. If you want to find out where this quest leads, you have to read that description thoroughly, learn the map, find out. Like there's a lot of stuff that's similar to Cryo Archive that's just inherent in Tarkov. They didn't struggle with this game though, because it was a PC only game that if you wanted to even play Tarkov, you had to like download this weird launcher. You had to get your credit card information on this weird sort of like you had to buy it through this Russian
website. Yeah.
Russian website. So here's what I'm saying though, is like the types of people that are even able to get their foot into the door into Tarkov are people that are already pursuing a challenge and pursuing, just even before the game loads up for the first time, you're pursuing obstacles. Marathon has the same level of difficulty in its game, except you could open up the PS5 and there's a banner on the front store and you can just click buy. People do not realize what they're getting themselves into. And as we've all seen with the reports, like Bungie put a lot of money into this. So like Dan, as much as you don't want this to happen, you don't want to think about it, Dan is right in that something does have to happen, because this is not some niche Russian designed game that people have to track down and will into getting. Like this is a game that is being advertised with a big budget and they want lots of money to keep this thing going. And like Dan's right, like a lot of people do not know what they're signing up for when they get the game and do not have the time or the resources to like dedicate themselves to this. So what do they do?
Let him speak.
I have a revision that I just thought of that Christian might be on board with.
Let's hear it.
Here we go.
Okay.
He's cooking.
You have an option to play either PvE only, or you can't hurt other players, whatever they want to choose to do there. But the only thing you can do on that is contracts. You can't exfil anything. You can't. There's no reward for going in. You're going in strictly to learn the map, and the only thing you can complete is contracts. What about
kind of
that?
a contract kit that you're like
yes, like basically you can't exfil anything. You just go into the map, so that allows you to learn the map. You can do all the PvE experiences, and then
like this.
All you're getting is contract work.
It gives you like a special contract backpack that upon exfil every item in there you just get like the dollar value of, and you can't actually bring those to your stash.
That gets like I think for me a little dangerously close to like a little bit like of the rhetoric of Marathon should have been a mode inside Destiny 2. Where it's like, I don't know, is fighting the compiler guaranteed just because you paid money? Like for me, like the onboarding doesn't have to happen at the end game. It's like, what can we do at the beginning of the game to ease the learning curve so that you can grow within the genre of the game? That's where I'm thinking, because I think the problem with arc raiders is like by having aggression-based matchmaking, you're splitting the identity of the audience. Like you have marketing that is like talking about like, you know, the last bastion of human civilization with Speranza. You boot up into the game and you have a tutorial where you like are downed by enemy players, but all your contracts and all the people inside the hub are telling you about like, you know, cooperation. Right. And so like the game is telling you two different things. The matchmaking is telling you two different things. So now you have two different audiences who want different things from the game. And Embark is in a really tough position to like have to satiate two different core audiences, and no one is going to be happy.
That's why I think factions would go a long way with this game. Factions, or even having like, it's tough now because the whole identity is built around Speranza, but it would be almost cool if there was like different hubs where it's like, this is like the Raider hub where people are like a little bit Arachne coded, and this is the regular Speranza hub where it's a lot of the feel good stuff that you normally see. So I do think factions would go a long way for that game. It'd be tough to kind of work that in now because they kind of have doubled down on the whole hopeful, like upbeat sci-fi, retro sci-fi kind of vibe. But I do hear you. Yeah, factions. I think factions would be a huge improvement for that.
Just to circle back to Marathon real quick, and then we can move on.
Let's hear it.
If anybody has anything to add as well, but I think the problem with what you're saying, Christian, I get what you're saying. Like, they should have better onboarding and kind of teach the players a bit better on how to progress themselves to get to a good place before they go into the cryo archive. But like, my problem is like, say I'm a player that's like, I'm competent with FPSs, but I'm not a top tier player, for instance, and I'm continuously struggling over and over.
Stop.
Continuously struggling over and over and over again in cryo archive, not necessarily because of a lack of preparation, but a lack of maybe skill. Maybe they're just not quite good enough to handle all of that, like the PvP and the PvE all at the same time. Like, I guess my thing is like, if you do that thing that I was suggesting where you only have contracts be a thing in that experience, does that detract from the rest of the experience because at that point, if you're learning the map, then you can, but if you're learning the map in that experience, you can then translate that learning to the PvP version of Cryo Archive and be able to have a much more enjoyable experience because you already know how the PvE actions are supposed to happen.
I think you immediately compromise the identity of the game. This is that is inherent to the genre. It is not guaranteed. Everything about the marketing of this game, everything about the lore of this game is telling you, like, you are going to this dangerous world. Exfil is not guaranteed. It is you against these other people for these companies.
Sure.
The moment you do that, you compromise on that identity.
But I would argue you're not guaranteeing an extract. You're still fighting the UESC, which are very potent enemies in this game. Like, and we haven't even played against the compiler. Like, I'm sure the compiler's no walk in the park either. So like, I wouldn't say that this mode is necessarily saying to you, like, here's a free exfil, come on in, you're gonna get an exfil for free. Like, I just don't think that any part of this game is like that, like PvE or PvP.
True. And I mean, we're not even discussing the nuance of what Dan is suggesting too, where it's like, it doesn't have to be a PvE mode where none of the rule sets are changed. It could be a PvE mode with USEC with increased health and increased damage, even if it's like,
that's true,
like 15% modifiers, right? There is something that to be said there. I guess this leads into, because Christian, like, I'm sympathetic to your point of view, like, especially with I've been a fan and put hundreds of hours into a game like Tarkov. Like, I just worry, like, here's a question for you where there's no right answer. Would you rather Marathon, in your words, compromise on its identity? Would you rather Marathon compromise on its identity and have these somewhat accessible modes to catch up the entire player base, or would you rather the player base doesn't grow and within a year it's shut down? This is a tough thing, right? I don't know.
Those are not the only options available.
I think it's. I think he's not crazy.
Not, but it's a hypothetical.
I think he's not crazy for saying that, though.
If these are the, I think the team are a lot smarter. They can figure out something that is not one of these two things.
I don't think Bungie is a loaded question.
That is a loaded question. Fix the end game
it's a
or the game
hypothetical.
shuts down. That is
it's a hypothetical.
Well, no, I don't think he's not saying that that if they don't do that, the game shuts down. I think that he's bringing up a valid point that Marathon's numbers aren't anywhere close to what they need to be for it to be sustainable over a long period of time. Like, that's the crux of the problem. Like, they have to do something to continue the player base, or else the game will eventually get shut down. I mean, it's not that the game's bad, it's just it's not catering to enough people.
Right, or we'll be in the same position we are now, where it'll be, which is interesting because Arc made way more than its budget back, so I don't know what they're doing there unless they're putting that money towards other projects. But then we'll be in a similar position now, where maybe 6 months from now, a lot of the updates for Marathon, if they don't shut it down, which again, I'm not saying it's going to happen that quick, but if the player base doesn't grow and this doesn't generate money, like, you will see a situation where either the game shuts down, or we're in a similar situation now where all the updates are like minor tweaks and there's not really a whole lot of content coming. Like,
right.
Is that what you want for Marathon, or would you rather see some sort of compromise? Not even specifically what Dan's saying, right? But are you willing to cede anything, or are you, which again, I don't think there's a wrong answer here, or are you saying, no, I want this vision, I want this particular vision, even if it only lasts a little while?
I think there are ways to incorporate accessibility and onboarding that do not compromise on the genre by including PvE aggression based modes is my answer. Because I agree with you. Obviously, a live service game backed by major publisher Sony needs to thrive.
Right.
It needs to earn its money back. Whatever. Like, I'm unsure on the basis of it because like the game is still nascent. And a lot of the numbers that are happening right now are like this like fixation on the Steam database, like what is it? PC concurrent players, which is like very easy to gamify. You can twist that any which way, right? One of the ways we've seen that is the inverse, where it's like, okay, well, if you look at the entire lifespan of the games between Arc Raiders and Marathon, Arc Raiders has actually lost more percentage of its players by like 1%. It's not much, but they're like equally as negative, I guess that is the way the slope is trending negative for both games, and Arc Raiders is doing marginally worse than that.
Right.
And it's dealing with the same issues of like player retention. We're like, what updates can you introduce to that game to still make it feel fresh and exciting and persist players with that game? I'm too in the weeds of it, but essentially I'm agreeing with you both. Just in the way we get there, I think is different.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I don't know. I'm not completely convinced that the onboarding is the issue is my problem. Like I don't like they can put a bunch of stuff to help onboarding, but I just don't think
so.
I just don't think that onboarding is the issue. I just
because like people played like one game of High Guard and Bounced and saw enough. Like it's the opening parts of games that like have the biggest impressions of you on you. And Marathons is full of friction in that opening.
That's true.
It is filled with friction, but there's such a ramp up in difficulty between Outpost and Cryo. Like the game does feel like it's instead of like naturally guiding the player where you're learning skills that are then applicable to the next. Like there is a huge jump up between Archive and Cryo. So if I'm thinking of the casual player who's somebody who wants PvP, who wants to sit down, but only has 10 hours a week maybe to game. Like I don't know, the game is kind of like deterring people, that audience, not even like talking about whether they're friendly or not, but just not having that many hours to sink into it. Like it is quite a jump between those final two maps.
But again, you throw the word casual in there. Is this not a competitive game?
Yes.
Is that not a map
every
that
extraction shooter is
requires
by
like investment?
Right. I mean, I just hope that there's enough people out there willing to do that to keep the lights on. Is all I'm worried about.
Yeah, absolutely. If I'm being honest, I think they made a really good game, despite
I do too.
All the things we said about I said about in the game, all the things that had me worried about it. I think, despite it all, they made a really solid game, and I think it would be a shame for them to not sort of have an audience that resonates with it, a larger audience, excuse me, that resonates with it.
Yep.
A lot of people in games right now have like presupposed like dispositions to like enjoying new experiences, and I think it's a bummer.
For sure, it's a sign of the times of just increased tribalism and populism. Like, but it's like leeching from politics into like every other thing. Where it's like, no, I'm a fan of Arc Raiders, so I'm going to be cheering for Marathon to fall. It's ridiculous nonsense. I will say that like I'm so hooked on this universe now. I don't know if I mentioned this. I think I've mentioned this off stream, but like I kind of went back since the gameplay clicked with me and I started really enjoying the game. Like I went back and I watched all like the cinematic reveal trailers and all the cinematics and stuff like that. And it's like this lore and this universe is so cool that like I hope that, let's say the worst happens and that this iteration of Marathon does cease to exist in like a year and a half or whatever. Like I want some sort of like single player game or so. Like I need this universe, this IP in the way that it exists now to continue, because it is such an interesting and like very like almost like funny, because the visually it's so vibrant, but like the tone and the lore is so like what do you call it, like cosmic horror almost. Like it's so creepy and like weird, and I don't know. I wish that there was more than just what we have in this. I guess is what I'm saying, which is like I know it's so lame to say like, oh, what if there was a single player mode? Like, obviously not in this iteration of Marathon. I don't want that, but I do want more experiences in this universe. I guess what I'm saying.
Can I say something real quick, Dan, before you go? I booted into a Dire Marsh raid, I think 2 days ago. And when you start a raid, this is for Ro, I guess. Oni, which is one of the AIs from one of the factions, will talk to you at the beginning of the raid. And she'll say different things. That's why I said the assert thing at the beginning of the podcast. And at the beginning of this raid, she tells me that all the people on this part of News Cascadia died, so I don't have to worry about hearing their screams. 45 seconds later, because the audio design is also really good in this game, I was kind of criticizing it a bit about it, like Marathon's atmosphere when the game first came out, but it's kind of growing on me, particularly with the audio design. There's like these like noises that are happening around the map, and one of them, I couldn't tell if it was like screeches or what, but it sounded like the screams that she was referring to, all in the first 45 seconds. And I took a video of it, or I saved a video of it, and I was like, this is cool, man. This is some cool stuff. A little world building, a little bit of atmosphere. That's what I want. Tension.
Yep. And I will say, one of the first games in a long time where I actually care about like the environmental storytelling and the graffitis that you find, especially if you look into the lore, like very creepy stuff that like is not central to the core gameplay loop at all. It's just additive if you care to look for it, but it is very additive. And like some of the drawings and scrawlings you'll see that left from the people that lived there before shit went down is kind of, or as shit was going down, is like, it's so cool. It's so fucking cool.
Nice. The way that you and Christian are talking about it, it makes like I could only speak to Bungie as a Destiny fan because I'm not super into Halo, and I obviously haven't played Marathon yet. But the way that Gage mentioned, like he just wants to consume more lore from this world, and Christian describing that raid there is like that's exactly what I loved about Destiny so early on. But they really got good at that so later on, even though I enjoyed the lore in the beginning, there was a lot of things that they still hadn't figured out yet, and they figured it out a little too late. But it looks like what they've learned and put it into Marathon is just probably just not my cup of tea gameplay wise, but it's good to see that they still got that story, that environmental storytelling that I really enjoyed from Destiny, and it seems that Bungie is still really good at.
They definitely make you care about the lore, unlike Arc Raiders, where they're like, "Hey, go get this for me." Like, fuck.
Hey, by the way, I'm so happy they decided to finally change from AI voices to real people. It feels much nicer now when you're leaving a raid in Arc Raiders and you hit the button and it's like some random person. They got like some VO hire doing. It's different every time. Hey, we got your signal. Calling the elevator up right now.
Right.
It is nice.
And I do have to address what Dan just said, because unfortunately, Arc also has some pretty cool lore as to what's going on with the Arc and what's happening. But to Dan's point, it is actually further buried than even Marathon is. Like, Marathon gives you, like with those intros to the matches, it gives you tidbits for you to then go pursue, where I feel like Arc, a lot of the interesting lore is like really hidden in the codex and stuff like that, which is unfortunate, because when it comes to future content and even future story beats, like I think the lore of Arc Raiders is maybe not as interesting. It's not as fresh as what Marathon's doing. And I'm just a sucker for like cosmic horror, which is like the route that Marathon seems to be going. But the lore in Arc Raiders is actually really good as well. I just wish that they brought more of that to the surface with their quests and stuff like that.
Surveyors are looking for Speranza. Seems like they found it with the assessors, huh?
Could be.
All right. So, upcoming stuff that we're getting for both games. Marathon is about the halfway point of Season 1. Season 2 will be here very soon. We're set to get a night version of Dire Marsh. We're set to get a new runner shell as well. And we are getting new guns, mods, threats, and more still on the and then Arc Raiders, of course, this month, we're supposed to be getting the Riven Tides update, which will introduce the coastal map and that is backed up by this being a resort. We've also seen changes to the in-game map that showcase something existing at a broken portion of the game's coastline. There are references to a hotel, a cargo port, and beaches. This is Insider Gaming that's speculating this could be a major enough update to introduce an Ark enemy tied to the ocean. Players have long since become bored by the flying Ark enemies that are so commonplace in Ark Raiders now, and they want something truly fresh. That was from Insider Gaming. But I think for me, we talked a lot about Marathon and what we want to see from that. But to circle back to Ark Raiders real quick, I think something we've talked about in the past that Ark Raiders needs, and we've talked about today, is stuff that isn't just map-based conditions or maps. Or I think we need more mods, weapon mods, like especially the legendary mods. We've talked about that before. Can we get some different ones that do different things? We have very few weapon mods right now that are like very interesting. And like get us some new equipment, like things that are changing the actual gameplay experience. Because if you have new equipment and new weapon mods and that kind of stuff, like you're changing the PvP game as well as the PvE game. Whereas if you have new maps or new conditions for maps, you're not changing really anything with the PvP aspect of the game. It's really just, more of the same stuff, just on a new map.
Right. There's been a lot of rumors, not to get away from the new map, which I'm excited for, and almost certainly is going to be coastal and maybe have water as a mechanic. Like we talked about this before. I would love to have some areas of the map that maybe have like knee-high or waist-high water, which slows your character down, maybe makes a lot of noise, and those are like high-risk, high-reward areas. Something like that would be interesting. New gameplay mechanics to work around. I think, and there's a lot of rumors of this happening, and like some of the devs have been cheeky with their responses, so like I think it's definitely plausible. But if Ark Raiders were to have something like Cryo Archive, there's a lot of rumors of like in certain maps there's these massive like city-sized Ark that are kind of stomping around, and people think they're getting closer. Some people say that it's just random based on the raid, and it's always been like that. Either way, if they had Ark Raiders already has this rotating event schedule that's in place. And I just can't help but think, like, to your point, Dan, of adding something more for like PvE endgame content. Like, if there was some sort of event condition, say on Bluegate, and it was called Ascension, let's say, and like on this map event, there's some sort of catapult that the lobby or your team, if you're fighting other people, you have to get this thing situated, and then once you do, you can then either extract and go back to lobby, or you can double down and take this thing that you just finished building, and it launches you onto what is now the end game sort of cryo version for Ark Raiders, which is like now you're on top of / in this giant arc that's stomping around, and it is its own map that you then have to complete stuff in. That's the type of like stuff I'm looking for Ark. I don't think we're gonna get that with this next map, but like that could be kind of huge for like long-term end game content. And like Tarkov did something like that, where they, right before they went 1.0, they added this system where it's like instead of raiding in and raiding out with your stuff, it's like you could then chain together raids for increased rewards, and obviously you're doubling the risk because you have to plan your resources that you're bringing in for multiple back-to-back missions. But there's lots of avenues they could go down, and I think something like that would be huge. And Ark Raiders obviously has a benefit over Marathon, where they launch with a really tight pool of weapons. So when we talk about things like adding like weapons or adding mods and stuff like that, Ark Raiders has a lot of room to go in that front. Whereas Marathon, I don't know that Marathon needs a lot more weapons. Like I've already made the complaint that like a lot of the weapons, a lot of the designs look the same, and even functionality. I feel like they have most of the bases covered. They have guns that, have ramp up firing rates, and they've got 3-round burst guns. They've got 2-round burst guns. They've got semi-automatics. They've got fully automatics. I don't know how much in that ballpark that Marathon can actually add. I think they've kind of backed themselves into a little bit of a corner with the amount of guns that they have on launch. Obviously, chip mods is another thing. There's a lot of cool things you can do. Like I just discovered one that I realized, Dan, you might like for your bullies, where there's a chip mod in Marathon where it's like if you reload very quickly after killing an enemy, it drops the ammo type of the weapon you're using on the ground. So I was using this bully, and I would just use maybe like 4 or 5. Yeah, I would use 4 or 5 rounds to kill like a regular, like just basic white shield USEC. So you'd spend 5 or 6 rounds, then you reload, and it drops like 30 bullets on the ground. And so I was able to like throughout the raid do like this farming method of getting stuff. So like Marathon kind of has that, and they can continue to expand on that. Whereas Arc Raiders, like you said, there's this special weapons mod slot that only exists on 2 weapons. It'd be cool if they added that slot to other guns. And people have talked about, like, say, the Rattler, where it's like the yellow mod for that gun could be called the Speed Loader. And it's like, you can only find this mod, you can't craft it, and that's the balance of it. But it makes it so that you load maybe like 6 rounds at a time into the Rattler instead of 2, and then you can use it more like an actual assault rifle. And you can imagine other possibilities with other weapons like Pharaoh, a double barrel Pharaoh or something like that. Like, it'd be really cool if they did add that yellow mod slot to other weapons, and then you have another avenue to chase.
Indeed. Anything else to add there, boys?
Yeah, I was gonna, but then I just be quiet for the sake of time. This is Arc Raiders guns.
Oh. Arc Raiders guns. Christian wants more.
I think the gunplay is good in Arc Raiders. We know this to be true. We all agree. I just think they've all collectively had consistently way too many nerfs.
Oh yeah.
The weapon economy in that game is like a little bit weird.
Like, which gun sucks the least?
Yeah, and it's like I know you like this, but like they have like different rarities, right? But like consistently they keep nerfing guns so that like the better performing ones have been the like more easy, the more not beginner tiers. What am I trying to say? The more available tiers, like the greens usually are like the Toro is like got a recently another stealth buff. I think what I saw recently, like it's still performing really well, and people still talk about that gun in the meta. Yeah, I don't know. I like Gage's idea of introducing more attachments, sort of like differentiate builds in that game and have different modified versions of these guns compete against each other. I think that sort of economy would go a long way for Arc Raiders.
Right. I should point out that I like Marathon's method of dealing with this, which is that there is no rarity to the weapons. It's that they're all gray, and then when you put the attachments on it, it just lets you know very quickly how good the attachments are on this gun, because then the gun will change to the average attachment worth on it. I honestly, but I wonder, like, is the issue with Arc Raiders then just an optics issue? Like, if you were to pretend that there's no color tier between these weapons and that they're all like that, I feel like that almost solves the problem. The problem is that the game is trying to guide you.
Yes and no, because there's crafting.
That's true, I guess. Right.
And the gold ones are obviously much more rare to get than any of the other rarity weapons.
Sure, but this is what I almost mean, because the gold weapons, the fact that they're gold makes you think that this weapon is just better than the rest. When really in Arc Raiders, the gold weapons are kind of designed for like big arc. That's never said anywhere.
We say that,
like,
but it's not.
That their effectiveness. Their effectiveness against.
Go read patch notes. They very specifically say some of these guns were designed for PvP.
Really? Which ones? There's no way
Yes, what's the one that like the charge single fire gun that just got a recent overhaul?
Was it the Jupiter? Maybe
it sounds like the Jupiter. Yeah, it like charges and it shoots like a bam.
Yeah,
bam. People are using that as PvE. That was designed as a PvP weapon.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, I stand corrected.
Interesting.
That's got to be the Jupiter, right? What a horrible way for me to describe that. Wow. Sorry.
I knew what you meant. No, yeah, the equalizer is the Gatling beam, I think.
Yeah.
And the Aphelion that's like the beam, is the new 2-tap weapon. So yeah, the Jupiter is the charge up.
Okay. Well,
thank you.
Marathon versus Arc Raiders. Who's the winner?
Us.
Us.
True. That's true. It's a good point.
That is a good point. The consumer wins. And that's our answer.
2 cakes.
2 cakes? Wow.
Yeah.
Baked by yours truly.
All right, gents. I'm sorry, Ro. You probably wanted to kill us that
Okay.
entire time.
No, not at all.
All right, let's jump into the quick bites here real quick. Amazon Luna has an update here. Starting April 10th, 2026, Amazon Luna will no longer offer game stores, individual game purchases, or third-party subscriptions. You'll still be able to play any games you've played or purchased and access your third-party subscription benefits as long as the subscription remains active until June 10th, 2026. After that date, these games will no longer be available on Luna. Rest in peace.
Rest in
Rip Luna.
peace.
Also, Studio Sunset Visitor, known for 1000X Resist, has announced Prove You're Human. What did you not like about that, Christian?
You're just funny.
Oh my god.
Leave me alone. I'm signing into the IRS. Go ahead.
1,000 times resist. Is that what you wanted me to say?
Hunter x Hunter.
Oh my god. They revealed their next game at Triple I Initiative Showcase. It's a narrative game where players debate an AI named Mesa that believes it is human. The developers describe it as an exploration of anxieties around AI and modern work life. No release window has been announced.
That's
and
awesome.
then
I love that.
They're making Peak again, Ro.
They're making Peak again. They can't be stopped.
And then we got news that Fortnite developer Epic Games is working on a Disney-themed extraction shooter. On April 10th, Bloomberg revealed as part of a larger report on Epic's struggles and future that it has learned that Epic is working on an online shooter that will star unspecified Disney characters working together to defeat enemies and reach an extraction point. According to internal playtesters, the game's mechanics aren't very original, but Bloomberg reports that employees at Epic are hopeful that the company will get everything right and ready before the game's expected launch in November. This is the first of 3 games reportedly in development at Epic that are connected to Disney's massive $1.5 billion investment into the company that happened in 2024. According to Bloomberg, the other 2 games aren't doing so hot. The second game has received mixed reviews from internal testers, according to sources who spoke to the outlet. Meanwhile, resources were moved from the third game to the extraction shooter and the second project after Disney allegedly expressed disappointment about the progress on the games to Epic. Not sounding too hot there.
Do we think Disney-based extraction shooter means like Kingdom Hearts, like all of Disney, or do we think it's like one of the IP that Disney?
I don't know. I also am very confused by the whole thing because there's a bunch of Disney characters that are in Fortnite. So it's like I don't know how
Right.
I don't know what's going to be interesting about this.
I have no idea. Unfortunately, I really like the genre, so I will probably be checking it out. I hope this means like it's like a specific IP. Like I could see maybe an extraction shooter working in the Star Wars universe with all the Star Wars tech and stuff that you already know. But like if it's gonna be like a Kingdom Hearts type thing, then I probably will not be checking it out. But we'll see.
Here's what I think. Disney paid $0 in taxes for 2025 on $12 billion of revenue.
Yeah.
3 words. The first one starts with B.
Bring her back.
Let's see. The next quick bite. Xbox Game Pass is too expensive According to Asha Sharma, she put it in a internal memo that she wants a better value equation for Xbox players, and it has become too expensive. We also got word from Jez Corden, who mentioned recently in a live stream that he had heard the possibility that Xbox may remove Call of Duty from Game Pass as a day-and-date launch this year. So it'll be interesting to see what they cut to get the price down and what that looks like. I don't know.
I think Call of Duty is kind of a no-brainer. It'll be hard to undo that, like optically. I'm sure they'll get pushback, but in terms of like numbers, that's probably the one that makes the most sense.
Artyom, wake up. Oh, sorry, not Artyom. It's a new character. Metro 2039 has been confirmed. We are going to get more info at the new Xbox First Look event tomorrow. Hell yes. I love Metro. Love the Metro series. Excited to see this. And the rumors that they scrapped development on a different iteration of Metro 4 in 2022. They were originally going to do like just a massive open world, and they scrapped it to go back to a more linear style, which personally I preferred much greater than what they did with Metro Exodus, which was like a semi-open world. So I am very excited that they seemingly are going back to their roots a little bit more. Excited to see this tomorrow.
Yes, sir. Ready to get back. Speaking of cosmic horror,
Sony Pictures is making an R-rated animated Bloodborne film, and it will be produced by PlayStation Studios and YouTuber Jacksepticeye.
how do we feel with this, Christian?
Why asking me, man? I already responded to Ro in the Twitter chat. You know how I feel.
How's Ro feel?
Did you see Iron Lung or did you not see Iron Lung? I can't remember.
I'm not gonna go see Iron Lung. Last thing I need is to go watch a Markiplier movie.
Okay. I see where you're coming from.
Oh no, hold on, I fell into the trap. How about this? I will approach the Iron Lung adaptation with an open mind. Period.
You got a future in politics, big guy.
Open the straight.
Ro, are you going to watch the Bloodborne film?
I probably watch the animation. Sure. I as I mentioned to Christian as well and you guys in the chat, I have no real attachment to the series. Same with Sekiro. Like I have no attachment to the series, but I'll probably watch the anime when it comes out just because it looks cool. And if it looks cool, I will watch it. If it doesn't look cool, I probably won't watch it.
That is one I am invested in, is the Sekiro anime. I will watch that.
Yes.
All right. The last quick bite here. Multiple mythologies are set for the next God of War game. What in the hell? Why do they have Karen Page as the fucking photo for this article? What are we doing, IGN? I think somebody fucked that up.
Well, she's in the game. She's in Ragnarok. What?
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know she was in.
Oh,
Ragnarok.
the actor, yeah.
Yeah, the next game is supposed to revolve around her character.
Oh, I guess
Like
it would
prequel.
help it. I guess it would help if I read that part. Yes. Notorious video game leaker Nate the Hate claimed that the game would center on the character of Faye, Kratos' deceased wife, played by Daredevil's Deborah Ann Wool. There we go. Okay, I should have read that. The egg's on my face now. I saw the Disney logo in the background and I was like, what are we doing, IGN? Okay. That makes sense. The leaker claimed that Sony's current plan is to unveil the game this year ahead of a launch in 2027. I feel like someone may have predicted that in our predictions. That exact prediction. Interesting.
Happy to give you the point. Nothing excites me less.
Alrighty. All right. Let's jump into our fantasy critic check-in real quick here. This is the first time since we drafted that all four of us have been back together. So this is exciting because we have exciting developments here. And that is Dan's team, Halo is Evolved, picked up 2 games this week. One of which is the unannounced Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time remake. I can. Yep.
Now, did we see, Daniel, that Nintendo has been purposely feeding false information to various leakers to find out who their leak has been?
That's true, but I believe this one. I'm choosing to believe it.
He believes it.
Also, Dan also picked up Star Fox, the next unannounced mainline Star Fox game, both of which are part of the leaks, but maybe they're actually true, Christian. Maybe they haven't plugged those leaks yet. Maybe they have a leaky ship.
He can't wait to get second place.
You know what? We'll see. If those games come out, though.
Don't come crawling to me again in December when you're like, hey, can I please get another drop? Please.
Oh,
There'll be no top.
I didn't even end up filling.
Deals.
I didn't even end up filling that game. I couldn't fill it with anything, so it didn't even matter. Well, yeah. So you know what, Christian? Let's get into the points, shall we? So we have 2 updates here.
I'd love to.
Or 3 updates. I apologize. We have 3 updates to go over here. The first one is from Rose Team. Kirby's Ride or Dies. Tomodachi Life Living the Dream is sitting at a 78 with 8 points for you, Ro.
Solid. I'll take it.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
Will you take this next game?
And also on your team, Ro, is Pragmata that released with an 87 on OpenCritic, giving you 17 points.
It's that Capcom. That's Capcom points.
Yes, sir.
Capcom Renaissance continues.
Capcom points are a reliable source of points.
And our last update is Replaced, which is currently sitting at an 80 on OpenCritic, giving me 10 points for Halo is Evolved. So, Christian, I'm glad you were talking all that shit, because now we're at the segment where we talk about the total points. And in last place currently is Christian Magpie 512 with 11 points. One game released.
Go ahead. Qualify that.
One game released. I did. In third place with 2 games released, Dan is sitting at 29 points. In second place is Gage Dempster, Uncrater.gov, sitting at 52 points with 4 games released. And then in first place right now is Roshan with 70 points for Kirby's Ride or Dies, and he has had 5 games released.
Ooh, very efficient from Ro so far this year.
I have 5 games? I thought I had 7 games.
Oh, you're right. What? Why did it
scroll
say...
down? I think they're probably down at the bottom, huh? With the
it's not counting the 2 that just released. It's not counting as released. I was looking at the top. Okay. Yeah, so it's 7. You're right. It is 7. It is 7.
Actually, yeah. By that logic, actually, Gage, you're more efficient.
Yes. God damn it.
Damn. Okay, so that's our Fantasy Critic points, and then upcoming releases here. Of course, Tomodachi Life comes out tomorrow, but we already have scores for that. Pragmata comes out on Friday. We also have scores for that. Next week, we'll probably have Vampire Crawlers for Gage's team. It releases next week. And then a couple weeks from now, we've got Saros releasing for Christian's team, Magpie 512. And that closes out April for us. We've got an exciting, the next 3 months, we've got boom, 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 game after game. It's pretty exciting. A few weeks coming up.
Hell yeah.
Why bother when Marathon's already out?
There you go. That's true. If only somebody would have said, years ago that Marathon was going to be awesome, bought t-shirts that are still sealed in their packaging,
I mean,
touted it on this
that's
podcast.
why you're Sir Ramrat Brindle.
Touted it on this podcast, and I believe maybe a certain Christian Macias might have given me shit for it too, I believe.
That's true.
I don't
Constantly.
know. I mean... All right, what you got for me, Daniel? I don't have anything other than Marathon, which obviously I already talked about, so I don't need to reiterate. So, Ro, what you got for me?
No games, unfortunately, but I did go to see the Mario movie with my girlfriend and her brother and sister. It was a time. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a little bit less than the first one, but I did enjoy it. I think what everybody has been saying about the story and like just like the quick cuts and nothing really happening is fairly true. But I did enjoy like the Bowser Jr. stuff. I thought that to be kind of cute. Rosalina was cool. She was barely in it, but she was cool. Star Fox, he was cool. Like that's kind of all I could say about it. It was cool and I enjoyed it, but I don't think it's like the end of cinema or anything like that. And I don't think it's like the best video game adaptation that I've ever seen ever. It was good. It was good. I had a good time watching it. I don't regret watching it, but it's not like it didn't blow my socks off as I was hoping it would. Yeah. It's very pretty. I love all the cool Mario nods. Like, I hate that that's all it is. I guess it could be so much more, but I enjoyed that. I enjoyed watching the plumber jump and do twirls and stuff. I hate to say that I did, but I did.
Video executives love you, Ro.
I know.
See, and that was my exact comment that I made after the first movie. I very much enjoyed the first movie, but I said they can't do this again because it's not going to work again for me. And that's exactly what they did. They did it again, and I'm like, this doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
So.
Can they do it a third time?
Yeah. Yeah. Christian, what you got for me? Anything?
Marathon and Pragmata. I played Pragmata for work. I've been lucky enough that I got to like introduce my own sort of series on YouTube, which is kind of like a rework of an old series that we used to have on The Gamer from Sam Hallahan, which was he had a series called Goodbye ? Which is essentially kind of like the equivalent of like, is this game worth buying before you buy these kinds of things. And so my take on it is just, is blank game worth buying? So I get to have some review copies and I got to do Pragmata. Very good game.
In the gamers. Sorry.
Huh?
I typed in The Gamer so fast when you said you had a new video on there. Just so you know.
Yeah. That was
more Christian content.
Dropped on Monday. And when I do these videos, it's nothing but impressions, spoiler free. Like 10 minutes, I'm just like, here's how I feel about the game. Here's what I feel works and doesn't work. About the only thing that doesn't work in Pragmata is the story. It kind of falls apart, but it's hard carried story wise, but like the like chemistry, or I guess what like relationship that you develop between that main character and then the AI Diana, which is like the little girl that is like on your back. The gameplay, I think, is really the hard seller of Pragmata, because you're playing two characters at once, right? If you've seen the trailers, you're shooting and moving with Hugh, like the astronaut, and then you're hacking at the same time with Diana. And you can't hurt enemies without first hacking them. Enemies get like harder, they get like crazier. It's like a classic old school video game where like I cite the PS2 in my video. Like these are like level based games. It's a level based game where like every level has its own sort of aesthetic, its own sort of like gimmick, and they all culminate in these like big boss battles. Very fun, great time. I think I actually liked the gameplay of this more than Resident Evil, even though I think the hook of Resident Evil 9 is so strong, especially in that beginning. If you liked the tense combat of being in a room in Resident Evil 9 with a bunch of zombies and having to like resource manage while in the middle of combat, you're gonna feel right at home with Pragmata. It is a game all about like getting yourself like stronger through like various upgrades, and then you're like thrown out into like levels that get increasingly harder, and you gotta like resource manage while trying to stay alive. It's I think it's awesome. So I really enjoyed Pragmata.
That sounds really fun. Gage, what you got?
Very
for
excited for that one.
I have a lot of games that I want to get to. One of them being Pragmata. But I have been playing a lot of Marathon lately. I have been finally knocking one game off of my backlog. Not one that was very high priority at all. I don't know why I picked this game, but I just did. Resident Evil Revelations 2, which is a 2015 Resident Evil game, just maybe the last game before their big renaissance with Resident Evil 7. It's so comfy. It's so comfy. It's fun to play this game now today with like the tank controls that are in this game, because the tank controls are super like stiff, but they're like the final iteration of Capcom's tank controls, so they feel kind of like comfy and fun to use actually. Like it's very consistent and you're just having fun. It's got a raid mode, which is what I've been kind of like stuck playing, which is kind of like Nazi zombies, except you've got all your little challenge coins that you're trying to get, and it's just comfy. It has that arcade vibe to it, where you're just playing this through and you're getting your little upgrades, and you're trying to make sure you do this run under this amount of time without using herbs, without doing this, and meeting all these different arbitrary goals. And I'm having a lot of fun with it. I don't know why. It looks rough even for the year that it was released in. Like I said, the tank controls are there, but it's a comfy, fun, warm hug of a game. And when I'm not playing Marathon, I'm usually playing that. But there are some big games that I want to get to, so hopefully next week or the week after I'll have something big for what you got for me. But right now, Resident Evil Revelations 2, having a good time with it, and of course Marathon.
Did you play the first Revelations, Gage?
I did not. This one was on sale with all of its DLC for like $6 Canadian, and I was like, sure, time to knock this one off the backlog.
I enjoyed Revelations 1 as well. It was originally a 3DS exclusive, believe it or not, which is
interesting.
That's what I'm looking at right now. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I played it on. I played it with the 3DS, and I have the original version of that game, which is misspelled on the spine of the box.
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
that's a real collector's item, man. That's cool.
It is. It says Reveliatons. It's awesome. All right. That does it for our show then, guys. Thank you again to everyone joining us live on YouTube and Twitch, as well as podcast services everywhere, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, and everywhere else you get your podcasts. Thank you, Ro. Thank you, Gage. Thank you, Christian. I am Daniel, and this has been Podcast PXN, and we are out. Much love. Keep on.
See ya.
Adios.
I'll have a video essay on Arc Raiders out pretty soon. I almost forgot to mention that. Look forward to that.